Today, we're about to explore the 6 most stupid amusement park deaths ever recorded. From a man who ignored staff warnings and leaned in the rapids to a drunk college student climbing over a log flume during the steepest drop in the dumbest way possible. It was August 3rd, 2014. The California afternoon sun beat down on a packed regional theme park where the screams of thrill-seekers mixed with carnival music. Ethan Marks, a 16-year-old from Anaheim, stood at the base of the Titan drop coaster, eyeing the 180-foot vertical climb. What should have been an ordinary summer day would end with paramedics arriving to a scene of catastrophic trauma. Ethan wasn't a troubled kid. He maintained a 3.8 GPA at his high school and volunteered at a local animal shelter. But he was obsessed with building his social media following. He'd gained a few hundred followers by photographing himself dangling from freeway overpasses and balanced on building ledges. His parents said that they knew about the account, but dismissed it as typical teenage attention-seeking. Theme park safety relies on multiple layers of protection, including restraint harnesses engineered to withstand extreme forces, surveillance cameras, and physical barriers designed to keep guests away from ride structures. Warning signs plastered every surface near restricted areas, clearly stating that climbing on rides resulted in immediate ejection and criminal trespassing charges. His friends said that he'd scouted the coaster for weeks, noticing that during loading sequences, cars sometimes remained paused at the apex, creating what he believed was enough time for a photo. That afternoon, Ethan separated from his friends, approaching the ride's exit pathway, where metal fencing created a barrier between guests and the ride's structural supports. 2 staff members were managing the loading platform 200 feet away. Ethan scaled the 6-foot chain-link fence, his phone clutched in one hand. He'd waited until a gate to a service pathway sat momentarily ajar, allowing him to bypass the normal barriers. 3 witnesses later reported seeing him climb the steel lattice framework supporting the track, moving with alarming speed toward the paused coaster car at the summit. A control room attendant glimpsed the climb on a camera feed and radioed the operator, who engaged the ride's emergency stop. The train remained locked at a block break at the apex. There was no safe, rapid procedure to retrieve someone hanging outside the restraints. Staff attempted to alert him from below, but the distance and ambient noise made communication ineffective. Ethan's friends watched from a distance, seeing him on the structure as he reached the coaster car side, approximately 180 feet above concrete maintenance pits. Positioning himself on the narrow maintenance catwalk beside the frozen coaster, Ethan leaned beyond the guardrail to frame the selfie. His sneaker lost traction on the narrow metal surface of the catwalk. His body twisted sideways, phone clattering away as both hands grasped for the railing. He caught it briefly, but momentum carried him backward. He fell from the structure before striking lower support beams. His body struck a horizontal steel crossbeam approximately 60 feet below. His body cartwheeled, striking 2 more support structures before landing face down in a maintenance pit containing hydraulic equipment. A ride operator called emergency services, and paramedics arrived within minutes but only pronounced Ethan dead at the scene. The county coroner listed cause of death as blunt force trauma due to a high-energy fall, with severe head trauma and fatal spinal injuries. Ethan's funeral drew attendees that included classmates who were with him at the park. The park permanently installed 12-foot fencing and increased security patrols. A subsequent investigation determined the ride had been functioning normally, and that the death resulted from unauthorized access to restricted infrastructure. No mechanical faults were identified, and the case was closed as a fatal trespassing incident. It was July 18, 2016. The afternoon sun beat down on a major water park outside Toronto, Ontario. Thomas Reynolds, a 32-year-old construction manager, sat in a 6-person raft approaching the ride's most turbulent section. Thomas had spent 8 years managing residential construction projects across the Greater Toronto Area. Colleagues described him as hands-on and practical, the type who'd climb scaffolding himself rather than wait for workers. He was a strong swimmer who'd grown up on Lake Ontario, comfortable in water most people would avoid. Thomas had developed an unusual hobby over the past year, scavenging debris from rivers and waterways. His garage contained fishing lures, sunglasses, even a GoPro camera he'd retrieved from various bodies of water. He'd mentioned to friends about wanting to check what accumulated in water park ride systems. Convinced valuable items ended up trapped in intake grates and flow diverters. Rapids rides operate by channeling thousands of gallons through concrete troughs fitted with jets and obstacles, creating turbulent currents that move circular rafts through the course at speeds reaching 15 miles per hour. That afternoon, witnesses said that Thomas had ridden the rapids 3 times already with his girlfriend, studying the water flow and debris accumulation points. On his 4th ride, he told her that he spotted something floating near one of the steel support brackets where the protective padding had deteriorated over time, leaving a hard steel flange intermittently exposed during high water flow, what appeared to be a waterproof phone case bobbing in the current. Despite his girlfriend's protests, Thomas leaned over the raft's edge as they approached the rapids section, reaching toward the debris. Park staff operating the ride exit noticed immediately, activating their radio to alert control operators. The radio call was garbled by the ride's pump alarms. Other riders in his raft attempted to warn him, but Thomas stretched further, his torso now completely over the side. The raft hit the first rapid at full speed, tilting sharply right. Thomas lost his grip, pitching headfirst into the churning water. The current was far more powerful than he anticipated, instantly sweeping him toward the concrete channel wall. Before he could orient himself, the water drove him directly into the exposed steel flange, striking him with catastrophic force. Thomas's head struck the beam, and his body went limp as the current carried him approximately 30 feet downstream. The water around him darkened as he drifted downstream. Riders downstream screamed as Thomas's unconscious body floated past their rafts. Park staff hit the emergency shutdown within 20 seconds, but the water volume kept the current moving, so full stoppage took nearly 90 seconds. 2 lifeguards immediately initiated emergency procedures, throwing rescue ropes, and when it became clear the raft could not be retrieved in time, both entered the water to pull Thomas from the ride's exit pool. He had sustained a severe head injury. The first lifeguard began CPR while the second called emergency services. Paramedics arrived within 8 minutes, finding Thomas unresponsive with no pulse. Despite advanced life support, he was pronounced dead at the scene. The medical examiner's report identified fatal head injuries caused by blunt force trauma. Drowning was ruled out as the primary cause. Thomas had died from the impact itself. The waterproof case Thomas had reached for was recovered from near the intake grate, containing a broken smartphone. A subsequent investigation determined the ride had been operating as designed, and that the fatal injuries resulted from rider misconduct. No mechanical failures were identified, and the case was closed following inspection. It was May 21, 2018. A large regional amusement park outside Seoul buzzed with the energy of a Friday afternoon as thousands of visitors filled its grounds. Among them was Min-Jun Lee, a 15-year-old high school freshman standing at the bumper car pavilion with 6 classmates. Min-Jun had earned a reputation at his Seoul school for fearlessness. A competitive gymnast since age 7, he specialized in rings and parallel bars, possessing exceptional upper body strength and spatial awareness. His Snapchat showcased handstand videos atop school railings, backflips off playground equipment, and daring parkour attempts through narrow alleyways. Teachers frequently reprimanded him for dangerous stunts, but classmates found his recklessness magnetic. Bumper cars are deceptively simple attractions. Electric vehicles weighing roughly 300 pounds each navigate a conductive power grid under the arena surface, with energized contact plates at speeds reaching 8 miles per hour, controlled by riders using steering wheels and accelerator pedals. The ride operates within a metal-bordered arena, approximately 40 by 50 feet, with rubber bumpers designed to absorb collision impacts. Safety regulations strictly prohibit standing, exiting vehicles during operation, or any physical contact outside the cars. Posted warnings throughout the attraction emphasize remaining seated at all times. That afternoon, Min-jun entered a bumper car with 2 friends while 3 others occupied nearby vehicles. The ride operator, a part-time college student managing 40 simultaneous riders, activated the 5-minute session at 3:15 in the afternoon. For the first 2 minutes, Min-jun drove normally, ramming friends and laughing. Then he stood up inside his moving car, gripping the steering column while balancing on the seat. His friends reacted with excitement over the electric buzz and collision sounds. Min-jun indicated to his friends that he intended to swing between 2 moving cars. Nobody stopped him. No adult noticed. The operator faced away, monitoring the timer and many riders. Min-jun positioned his car between 2 friend-driven vehicles traveling roughly parallel at 6 miles per hour. He planted 1 foot on each car's edge, releasing his original vehicle and gripping both steering columns. For several seconds, he managed to hold the position, grinning widely as they watched the stunt. His left foot slipped on the smooth metal edge. Both hands lost grip simultaneously. Min-jun dropped straight down into the small gap between the rubber bumper and the floor. His head struck the hard arena floor with devastating force. The impact was immediately incapacitating. Blood was visible on the arena floor. The operator heard screaming and hit the emergency stop within 4 seconds. All vehicles powered down, but some coasting motion continued before the cars came fully to rest. Min-jun lay motionless between 2 cars, showing signs of severe head trauma and remaining unresponsive. Park medical staff arrived within minutes, finding no pulse. More paramedics reached the scene 7 minutes later, but resuscitation attempts proved futile. The autopsy revealed catastrophic injuries. Min-jun suffered catastrophic head injuries, including skull fractures and fatal brain trauma. Death occurred within seconds of impact. The medical examiner concluded he lost consciousness immediately. The attraction was shut down pending investigation. A subsequent investigation concluded the death resulted from rider misconduct and violation of posted safety rules. No mechanical failures were identified. It was June 15, 2017. The afternoon sun blazed over a major Southern California theme park, casting crisp shadows across the midway where families lined up for attractions promising harmless thrills. However, one summer shift would dissolve into tragedy before the cotton candy vendors finished restocking. 18-year-old Ethan Morales, a seasonal employee 3 weeks into a lead-in training role, had been instructed to keep the 3:20 p.m. rotation moving. Other colleagues were aware that Ethan wanted the supervisor's praise. He wanted to look competent in front of the crowd. He had a reputation among co-workers for being eager and a little too clever with shortcuts. He liked to joke that rules were suggestions, and he'd already earned praise from a manager for shaving 30 seconds off the queue time earlier that afternoon. The swing attraction was a rotating swing chair carousel with chain-hung seats, equipped with individual lap bars secured by a ratchet-locking powel. Lap bars were supposed to be tested with a firm push until resistance was felt. A click was heard, and a green indicator aligned. A small maintenance issue had nagged the ride for weeks. One lap bar on row 3 stuck intermittently, and the ratchet pawl showed surface corrosion at the hinge bolt. Maintenance had logged the note but taped a temporary warning tag to the control box and prioritized other repairs. The ride still passed daily inspections on paper because the sensor auto cutoff had been temporarily bypassed following repeated nuisance trips, an entry that, in the bustle, hadn't been verified by the supervisor that morning. As guests climbed in, Ethan juggled the loading drill like a circus act. Because he was trying to keep lines short and already had a broom tucked against the rear platform to sweep debris, he hit on what he thought was a brilliant time saver. Prop the problematic lap bar open with the broom handle so riders could slide in smoothly, then give it a quick shove to lock it in place. When the next cycle approached, there happened to be one empty seat in row 3. Someone shouted that the bar still needed testing. Without thinking through policy, without calling maintenance, and eager to prove the bar would click, Ethan climbed down into the empty bucket seat, jammed the broom handle between the lap bar and the seat lip, and pressed the bar with his foot until it engaged. He meant to sit for 5 seconds and then hop out, test, then resume his station. A co-worker shouted a warning he didn't hear. A manager on the headset called for the cycle to start as the ride was cued. In the chaos, Ethan forgot the golden rule: never be on the ride while it's about to start. The ride started. Centrifugal forces that normally kept secured riders in place worked against a lap bar propped from beneath. The broom, wedged at an angle and not designed to bear shear forces, began to slip almost immediately as the ride accelerated. The altered load path shifted dynamic shear onto the corroded ratchet pawl, which finally released on the 8th rotation. Ethan's hands scrabbled for the handles. The lap bar pivoted upward, then broke free. He was flung outward from a moving seat traveling about 12 feet before striking the fence that ringed the ride. The impact was catastrophic and immediate. A park EMT-trained first aid attendant stationed in the adjacent operations corridor reached the scene within moments and immediately recognized the severity. Paramedics arrived shortly and pronounced Ethan dead at 4:12 p.m. Park management shuttered the ride the same day. Regulators cited multiple violations after reviewing CCTV footage, control logs, and maintenance records. Disabled sensors, poor maintenance follow-through, inadequate supervisory verification, and unsafe operator behavior. The manager who'd urged faster cycles faced internal review for pushing throughput over procedure. The ride remained closed for months while refurbishment, retraining, and a full redesign of barrier protection and interlocks were completed. It was October 12, 2013. One of Tokyo City's amusement park hummed with its usual Saturday afternoon energy, roller coasters cycling through their loops while families moved between attractions. In a restricted maintenance corridor behind a roller coaster, 25-year-old Kaito Nakamura was about to make the last questionable decision of his life. Kaito was a third-year business student at a private university in Shibuya, known among classmates for increasingly reckless stunts. They accompanied him trespassing in construction sites, climbing transmission towers, and sneaking into off-limits areas. Friends described him as desperate for attention, someone who constantly needed to one-up his previous stunts. He had received multiple warnings from university administrators about his activities. That specific roller coaster in Tokyo had a maintenance zone that housed heavy cart transport systems that moved along floor-mounted rails, shuttling ride vehicles between the main track and service bays. The service carts weighed approximately 800 pounds empty and carried 600-pound ride vehicles, totaling roughly 1,400 pounds when loaded. Floors were normally clean and dry, but a recent maintenance task left a slick patch of hydraulic fluid near the rails. Multiple signs in Japanese warned unauthorized personnel about crush hazards and moving equipment, with access restricted by locked gates, keypad-controlled doors, and motion sensors. That afternoon, Kaito arrived at the park with 3 friends who knew about his plan to infiltrate the maintenance area. His friends said that he planned to climb the service fence, photograph himself beside the actual ride mechanisms, and escape. His friends protested weakly, pointing out the danger signs, but Kaito dismissed their concerns as cowardice. He had successfully trespassed in dozens of locations without incident, likely building a false confidence. At 2:47 in the afternoon, an exterior security camera captured Kaito scaling the chain-link barrier, while his friends watched nervously from outside. Internal cameras in the corridor recorded him as he landed. Although cameras covered the corridor, the live operator was focused on passenger loading and ride dispatch monitors rather than the maintenance transport feed. Carts moved every 4 minutes along the rails. Warning lights flashed amber throughout the corridor, indicating the system was operational. The automated cart system was live because a maintenance crew was working on a different section of the track, requiring transport carts to remain active to shuttle vehicles between service bays. Full lockout-tagout procedures had not been applied to the transport corridor. Kaito seemed to have ignored everything, likely focusing on getting the perfect shot. Moving deeper into the restricted space, Kaito positioned himself near the rail system for a photograph. The concrete floor was coated with a thin layer of hydraulic oil left from a recent repair. As he turned to signal his friends, his feet slid out from under him. He fell directly into the path of an incoming transport cart carrying a fully loaded 1,400-pound coaster vehicle. moving at approximately 8 miles per hour. Emergency brakes engaged immediately but could not stop the cart in time. The crushing impact was instantaneous. Kaito's body was compressed between the cart and a concrete support pillar, causing catastrophic blunt force trauma to his chest and abdomen. The impact left extensive blood evidence across the cart and surrounding structure. His friends screamed, and one immediately called emergency services. Park medics reached the corridor within 4 minutes but could not provide life-saving intervention. First responders arrived within 7 minutes. The coroner determined death occurred within seconds from catastrophic blunt force trauma to the thorax, resulting in multiple rib fractures, collapsed lungs, and severe heart damage. Toxicology tests were negative. Surveillance footage from the exterior and corridor cameras confirmed the entire sequence from illegal entry to fatal impact. Park management handed all footage to authorities. They interviewed his 3 friends regarding the incident and noted their delayed call to security. The friends required psychological counseling for months, haunted by watching their peer die for their validation in a completely preventable tragedy. It was September 1st, 2018. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across a popular theme park in Orange County, California, where crowds gathered for Labor Day weekend festivities. Derek Collins, a 21-year-old engineering student, stood in line for the log flume ride with 4 college friends, visibly intoxicated and laughing too loudly. Derek wasn't a troublemaker by nature, but he had developed a dangerous drinking pattern during his 3 years at a state university. Friends described him as intelligent but impulsive when drunk, someone who took dares too seriously and craved attention. That afternoon, Derek had consumed approximately 8 beers and 3 shots of whiskey over 4 hours at a nearby parking lot tailgate party before entering the park. His blood alcohol content would later be measured at 0.19, more than twice the legal limit. Log flume rides are deceptively simple attractions where passengers sit in hollowed-out artificial logs that float through water channels before plunging down steep drops at speeds reaching 40 miles per hour. The rides feature minimal restraint systems or lap bars designed to keep riders seated during the descent, but they are not always secured. Park regulations explicitly prohibit intoxicated guests from boarding any rides, with trained staff positioned to identify impaired visitors. Derek's flushed face and unsteady gait should have been obvious warning signs. At 4:15 in the afternoon, Derek and his friends approached the ride entrance. The teenage ride operator noticed Derek's unsteady gait but misjudged the level of his impairment and continued loading the next log. Derek climbed into the front seat of a 6-person log, his friends filling in behind him, one already recording video on his phone. As the log began its slow climb up the 42-foot lift hill, Derek started joking about standing up. His friends laughed, encouraging him. The ride's drop photo and nearby CCTV later showed Derek shifting forward and rising in the log as it crested the lift. The ride operator radioed security, but the log had already reached the top of the drop. Derek stood partially upright just as the log tipped over the edge, accelerating down the 50-degree incline. His alcohol-impaired balance failed completely. Instead of sitting back down, he pitched forward over the front of the log. His friends' laughter turned to screams as Derek tumbled over the nose of the vessel at approximately 38 miles per hour. Derek's body was projected forward over the nose of the log, veering left as it cleared the channel and struck the concrete apron beside the runout pool. His body went limp instantly, sliding into the shallow runout water as his friend's log splashed down behind him. Other riders began screaming as streaks of blood clouded the runout water. The ride operator hit the emergency stop within seconds and called park security at 4:18 in the afternoon. Paramedics arrived by 4:24 in the afternoon, but Derek showed no signs of life. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The autopsy revealed massive skull fracture, severe brain laceration, and catastrophic subdural hemorrhage. Death was instantaneous from blunt force trauma. A friend had filmed the incident on a phone, and police seized the device and made a forensic copy. The friend later deleted any social uploads. The park halted alcohol sales for the night, expanded sobriety checks at entry, retrained staff, and pledged to work with local regulators on tougher enforcement. Derek's death prompted stricter enforcement protocols across the amusement park. Thanks for watching. If you liked these stories, click here